Good evening, I'm Diane in Hong Kong, and you're watching View TV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Carrie Lam finally responds to the journalist visa saga, dismissing links with an independence talk as pure speculation. The CE also teases her policy address due tomorrow, saying there'll be 250 new measures to help make Hong Kongers' lives better. And calls for the government to take tougher action against contractors like Leighton Asia. One lawmaker says a 15-month bidding ban simply isn't enough. Well, the chief executive has finally spoken out over the journalist visa denial controversy. Carrie Lam dismissed links between the immigration decision and an independence talk at the Foreign Correspondents' Club as pure speculation. Speaking before the weekly IXCO meeting, Lam defended immigration officials and said entry and exit matters are, quote, within Hong Kong's autonomy under one country, two systems. But she insisted press freedom is a core value of the cities. The case is widely seen as politically motivated since the journalist involved was acting president of the FCC when it hosted a talk by independence advocate Andy Chan in August.
As a rule, not only locally but internationally, as a rule, we will never disclose. The Immigration Department will not disclose the individual circumstances of the case or the considerations of his decision. So I cannot comment on your speculations.
Meanwhile, Victor Mallet has made his first public remarks about his visa denial. On social media, the Financial Times editor thanked those who voiced their demand for Hong Kong authorities to give an explanation. He said, "I'm very grateful to all those who've signed this petition, particularly those from Hong Kong, which has been home to our family for a total of more than 7 years." And now pan-democratic lawmakers want to grill the CE and other officials, including the heads of the Security Bureau and Immigration Department involved in Mallet's visa saga. The legislators will table a motion to summon them to testify in LegCo and provide related documents.
This particular case involving Mr. Mallet is quite so unusual. It's quite so blatant and vicious on the part of the Hong Kong government to try to victimize one particular person, one foreign journalist, and this is just unacceptable. We need a proper explanation from the authorities.
Well, the CE also teased her policy address, which will be presented at LegCo tomorrow morning. Carrie Lam said she'll be introducing 250 new measures to respond to the public's demands on housing, medical and education issues. She showed off the policy booklet to reporters, which sports the same blue cover as last year's. On social media, Lam had a video posted of herself working hard, saying she received more than 12,000 opinion letters through different platforms. She said about a third were about housing, while just under a fifth were about healthcare issues. Lam also gave a progress report on policy initiatives unveiled last year. Among the 10 people-oriented measures on her list, she said the government's been changing hiring rules to offer ethnic minorities more job opportunities in the civil service. Lam also noted new schemes and subsidies for low-income families, families with special needs children, and patients with uncommon diseases. In other news, there are calls for the government to permanently revoke the license of major MTR contractor Leighton Asia following a number of scandals. That sentiment is being echoed by the railways lawmaker, who says the recent penalties won't change much. Evelina Leung reports.
Banned from bidding for new government projects for up to 15 months. That penalty was slapped on several MTR contractors involved in the shoddy work scandals on the Sha Tin Central link. The companies include Leighton Asia, Samsung Xinchong Construction, and China State Construction Engineering. But two experts now say the punishment isn't tough enough. Speaking on a radio show today, Railways lawmaker Michael Tian said a stronger line needs to be taken with Leighton Asia, since it already has $80 billion worth of government projects.
至少真係要停佢個5年。 A suspension period of at least 5 years is the only way to effectively penalize the company. Right now, a suspension period of 15 months, given that it also has projects around the world, it won't affect it that much.
The boss of China Technology Corporation, a subcontractor of the Shotton Central Link, went a step further, calling for Leighton Asia's license to be revoked.
The contractor management handbook itself have established certain procedures and certain criteria to either suspend or either remove the contractor from the category of the lease. I do opine in the established procedures and the established documentations that Leighton had already achieved the level of removal from the lease.
The shoddy work scandals surfaced back in May. In the beginning, the focus was on the Hong Kong station managed by Leighton Asia. Media reported on 2,000 couplers that weren't installed properly, prompting concerns about structural safety. In June, MTR confirmed that 2 walls at the To Kwa Huan station had been installed incorrectly and that reinforcement bars were missing from the structure. The Samsung Xinchong joint venture was in charge of this station. Around the same time, it was found that excavation work at the exhibition center station was halted because of subpar work. The railway company discovered that there was a lack of safety measures at the site that was managed by Leighton Asia and China State Construction Engineering, which put the workers at risk. Evelyn Leung, VOTV News.
Elsewhere in the city, 2 men have died in a fire that broke out in a Sham Shui Po subdivided flat late last night. Police say they're treating the incident as a suspected case of murder, suicide and arson. The fire broke out around midnight in this flat on Tainan Street. Police found a 59-year-old man dead in the apartment with multiple head and back injuries. His wife told officers he'd had arguments with their neighbors about water fees. Another 68-year-old man was found on the ground outside the building. He died after he was sent to hospital. Bloody gloves and a hammer were discovered in the flat. Well, the High Court has turned down 2 pro-democracy activists' requests to appeal their conviction in the Court of Final Appeal. Just last week, the High Court upheld the convictions for Leung Kwok Hung and Tam Tak Chi. Both staged a protest at a debate competition at Queen Elizabeth Stadium in 2015, which was then attended by then Chief Secretary Carrie Lam. The pair's lawyers argued it's still unclear under what circumstances a peaceful demonstration crosses the line and becomes a disturbance. But the judge said the case was not reasonably arguable and refused their application. All right, coming up next, the latest from the world of business. Well, we'll start with a look at what's been happening in Greater China equity markets. The Hang Seng continued its streak of falls today, dropping 0.1% to close at 26,172 points. On the Chinese mainland, shares gained slightly thanks to a boost from policy measure announcements. The Shanghai Composite Index added nearly 0.2%. Investors may have to brace for even more grim news, according to the International Monetary Fund. The organization has cut its global economic growth forecast for this year and the next. The reasons? Rising trade war tensions, weaker performances by Eurozone countries, and financial pressures on emerging markets. The IMF says the tariff row between the US and China will really be felt in 2019. It predicts the US will expand 2.5% instead of 2.7%, and it revised China's GDP to 6.2% from 6.4%. Well, finding a model for sustainable prosperity was a priority for this year's Nobel Prize Committee. The panel has recognized the work of 2 American professors who both study ways economics can integrate environmental issues and the benefits of technology. Francesca Linnor has the details.
The Nobel Prize in Economics has been awarded for the 50th time, and this year it went to 2 Americans.
The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has today decided to award the Sveriges Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel for 2018, with one half to William D. Nordhaus for integrating climate change into long-run macroeconomic analysis, and the other half to Paul M. Romer for integrating technological innovations into long-run macroeconomic analysis.
The award was not actually part of the 5 awards originally set out in Alfred Nobel's 1895 will, but it's regarded as a highly prestigious prize for those making outstanding contributions to economics. This year's winners congratulated specifically for their work in integrating climate change and technological innovation into economic analysis.
The models that Nordhaus and Romer created have significantly broadened the analysis of economic growth and have provided the standard framework for research and policy making in the areas of technological development and climate change.
Nordhaus and Romer's $1 million award was the last of the 2018 awards to be announced.
Google's parent company Alphabet says it will shut down the consumer version of its social network, Google+. That's after the company revealed that private profile data of at least 500,000 users may have been exposed to third-party developers. Google says the issue was discovered and fixed in March, insisting no one exploited the flaw, but critics slammed the tech giant for its long silence over the breach. All right, time for a break now, but do stay with us. Coming up, Japan's Shinzo Abe rolls out the red carpet for Southeast Asia's leaders as they discuss regional peace and security. That story from Tokyo next.
We enrage, we envy, we resent, we dislike.
We breathe, we laugh, we cry, we live.
We disappoint, we frustrate, we bore, we suffer.
We fear, we doubt, we defeat, we empower.
We communicate,
we talk,
we listen,
we learn,
we care. Jazzing up,
touching hearts,
paying attention,
seemingly distant,
deeply connected.
This October, Now TV brings you a sporting feast. It's one of the biggest football rivalries. Find out who draws first blood in this classical matchup. El Clasico. The tennis season may near its end, but the tension just gets bigger. Catch the final 2 ATP 1000 series, the Rolex Shanghai Masters and the Rolex Paris Masters. The coolest sport on the planet is back. 31 teams set their sight on the Stanley Cup Finals when the new NHL season squares off. It's one of the biggest golf tournaments contested in China. For honor and for money, there's everything to play for. The WGC HSBC champions. Come along for the sports ride. This October, only on Now TV. Wrestling fever explodes on View TV6 as we bring you action from the WWE Raw. Catch the stars, the drama, the thrills and the spills. What is going on? A new episode every week. The WWE Raw. Friday at 12 midnight on Channel 96 View TV6. World number 6. Alina Svitolina. 2017 Roland Garros winner, Yelena Ostapenko. Go head-to-head with some of the world's top players in the city that never sleeps. Prudential presents Prudential Hong Kong Tennis Open 2018. Tomorrow night at 7. Live on Channel 96, View TV6.
Welcome back. Leaders of the 5 Mekong countries are gathered in Tokyo for an annual summit aimed at cementing regional ties. At the top of the agenda this year is bolstering infrastructure. Our Tokyo correspondent John Matthews sent us this update.
Heads of state from Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam are in Tokyo for this year's gathering hosted by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Japan has a strong vested interest in helping Southeast Asia develop. Not only is it a growing customer for Japanese exports, but Tokyo needs to shore up support in an area increasingly dominated by China both economically and militarily. The leaders are expected to announce a new investment plan to develop the region. On the sidelines, Abe met with his Vietnamese counterpart and promised $10 million worth of grant aid for food safety, and Vietnam agreed to cooperate on maintaining security in the region without naming China explicitly. Cambodians took to the streets in Tokyo to protest the visit by Prime Minister Hun Sen. His party swept into power in July after what the international community has called a sham election. This summit was also an opportunity for Tokyo to show off a plan to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Attendees also praised recent diplomatic efforts with North Korea, including the June summit with the U.S. in Singapore, and called for dismantling of Pyongyang's weapons of mass destruction.
In Indonesia, residents on the island of Sulawesi are still reeling from the devastating earthquake and tsunami that hit nearly 2 weeks ago. But they are slowly trying to rebuild their lives, and as Eve Johnson reports, schools are trying to give more support to their young students.
School is back in session 10 days after an earthquake and tsunami devastated the Indonesian city of Palu. Authorities calling students back to the classroom to help clean up and to provide a head count as they try to figure out how many children survived the disaster and how many are not coming back. The official death toll stands at around 1,900, but according to officials from 2 hard-hit areas in the city, 5,000 more may still be missing. Although Indonesia's disaster relief agency says that figure isn't official yet.
It's not easy to record bodies still buried by rubble from landslides or mud, and efforts are still underway.
Experts say liquefaction was the biggest killer when the 7.5 magnitude quake turned the ground into a muddy mire, obliterating several neighborhoods in Palu. As hopes fade for survivors, authorities say they'll call off search and rescue operations on Thursday. Meanwhile, schools are trying to provide much-needed support.
We're trying to help the children overcome their trauma. We want to encourage them so they'll want to come back. We actually had some kids show up yesterday simply because they missed school.
But the empty hallways are also a grim reminder. At one school, fewer than 50 out of nearly 700 students showed up. The principal said that so far, only a handful of those missing had been confirmed dead. Many, he said, are struggling with fear and not ready to go back to school just yet.
Well, India has sent experts to try to contain an outbreak of the Zika virus in the northern tourist hotspot of Jaipur, with a close watch on pregnant women. Health authorities said at least 29 people in the city have tested positive so far. Some international health experts are advising pregnant travelers to postpone trips to the area. There is no vaccine for the Zika virus, which can cause severe birth defects in unborn children. It's the third such outbreak in India in 2 years, with the other 2 successfully contained, according to the government. To new developments in the poisoning case of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter. Investigative website Bellingcat has named the second of 2 Russians accused by Britain of being responsible as a military doctor for the Kremlin's intelligence agency, GRU. Mia Wormsley reports.
The second Russian who Britain blames for the poisoning of a former spy has been named as a military doctor for Russia's spy service. The investigative website Bellingcat has named him as Alexander Yevgenyevich Mishkin. The 39-year-old was charged in absentia by Britain last month under the name of Alexander Petrov. Both he and another man are wanted for attempted murder for a Novichok attack on Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in March. Bellingcat says he was recruited by the GRU intelligence service during his medical studies, and that until September 2014, Mishkin's Moscow home address was the same as the GRU headquarters. Mishkin's alleged accomplice was earlier identified by the website as a colonel in Russia's military intelligence, whose real name was Anatoly Chapiga. Both suspects appeared on Russian state TV last month, proclaiming their innocence. The UK believes they'd used fake names to enter the country. The poisoning has prompted the biggest East-West diplomatic expulsions since the Cold War. Skripal and his daughter were found slumped on a public bench in the town Salisbury. and a woman later died after her partner found a fake perfume bottle, which police believed had been used to smuggle the nerve agent into the UK. British police have said they would not comment on speculation about the real identities of the men, while Russia denies any involvement in the poisoning.
Well, Turkish authorities now say they will search the Saudi consulate in Istanbul following a probe into the mysterious disappearance of a Saudi journalist. Reports say Saudi officials invited Turkish authorities in for the search. Journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who's been critical of the Saudi crown prince, has been missing since visiting the consulate last week. Turkish sources said authorities believe he was killed inside the consulate. Saudi officials repeatedly denied it and have yet to prove their claim that Khashoggi left their compound that day. In Syria, rebels who were forced from their towns after government forces retook Ghouta are starting over again. Here's Emily Wither with more.
In a life before Syria's war, Jafar used to be a builder before he picked up a gun and turned it on his government. Now a rebel fighter, he's far from home, displaced to Syria's last major opposition stronghold. He's using his skills to build hundreds of homes for displaced fighters and civilians near the Turkish border. These fighters belong to Jaish al-Islam, one of the country's most prominent rebel groups. They're comparing this project to a new town for people displaced from eastern Ghouta, just outside the capital Damascus. One of the group's commanders telling Reuters his group is reorganizing and rearming.
I don't think it's impossible that Assad will fall, especially given that the opposition forces are today gathering in one place. This is a source of strength.
The goal is to build 1,400 homes here, part of a wider effort by the group to recover in the north. This building near the city of Al-Bab points to preparations for a long stay in northern Syria and a looming showdown with government forces.
Now, global efforts to curb the effects of climate change aren't likely to be enough. That's what a UN report is now warning. The organization says unprecedented changes would be needed at this stage to prevent worse disasters and a global rise in temperatures. Here's Mia Wormsley again.
A stark warning from the United Nations panel on climate. Unprecedented changes are needed across the world to prevent a temperature rise, which would increase heat waves, flooding, drought and the loss of species.
The pledges that governments have made over the last 3 years are not enough to keep warming below 1.5 degrees C, even with ambitious and very challenging efforts after 2030.
The preferred 1.5-degree target was set at the 2015 Paris Agreement. But the report suggests the world is off track and heading towards 3 degrees instead. That would mean huge changes for the world, including coral reefs being virtually wiped out and more deadly wildfires as seen in Europe this summer. The window of opportunity to make a change is not yet closed, but urgent action is needed and fast. According to the report, a change of just 1.5 degrees would reduce species loss and extinction and be of clear benefit for people and ecosystems. Renewable energy is a key factor. It would need to supply up to 85% of electricity to stay within the target, much higher than its current 25%. The report is seen as the main guide for governments on how to implement the Paris Accord and could prove vital when world powers meet for the next climate change conference in Poland this December.
All right, time to switch gears and get the latest sports headlines. Starting with tennis, and in the Hong Kong Open, local players Zhang Ling and Yudis Chong were knocked out in the first round today. Though ranked first in the city, Zhang Ling was up against sixth seed China's Wang Qiang, who simply proved too strong for the Hong Kong star. Wang swept 2 easy sets, 6-love, 6-2. And the only other local player who made it into the first round, Yudis Chong, pushed American Christina McHale to a third set. Chong clinched the first round tiebreaker, but ended up losing the match 7-6, 2-6, 1-6. Staying with Hong Kong, 3 of the city's cricketers have been suspended after they were charged under the International Cricket Council's anti-corruption code. In a statement, the ICC said it's charged 3 Hong Kong players with 19 counts of breaching the code. The 3 players have been named as Irfan Ahmed, Nadim Ahmed and Hasib Amjad. They now have 2 weeks to respond to the charges. Turning to football now, and the provisional list of nominees for the sport's most prestigious individual award has been announced. Current holder Cristiano Ronaldo has been nominated again amid allegations of rape against a Juventus forward. The Portugal captain has won the award for the past 2 years and 5 times in all. He shares that record with Argentina's Lionel Messi, who is also among the 30 nominees. Well, few of his goals might be better than this one, though. Take a look at this penalty from the Russian national student soccer league. Noriga Avdalia added a spot of gymnastics when finding the net in his team's 4-0 victory in Kazan on Sunday. Avdalia's backflip clearly confusing the keeper. Unfortunately, he's just missed out on the FIFA awards for 2018, but perhaps he might be in with a shout next year. All right, that's it for now. Do join us again tomorrow for more updates on stories shaping your world. We'll see you tomorrow.
Coming up next, 50 ways to leave your lover. Why should you watch a documentary film?
Gonna be fun. Oh, beautiful. I don't want nothing to do with it. It's crazy.
Because it is something new to do.
Crunchy. Delicious.
And this is a culmination of my wildest dreams.
I knew I was fast traveling to work.
Because it exposes yourself to new horizons.
We must absolutely change our system.
I'm sickened by the war on drugs.
Because it deeply touches your heart.
The pain that I'm going through. And everything is just hollow.
Because it is the best Sunday entertainment. Theatre 96, bringing you the greatest documentary films from around the world. Sunday night at 9:30 on View TV 6.
I remember my stay at the Blue Beach Hotel on the Gold Coast and the amazing view I had from my hotel room. But it's been a while. What if there's a huge building in front of it now? Thankfully, on Trivago, I can look up recent reviews for this hotel from Trivago's rating partners. Trivago shows whether these reviews are positive, neutral, or negative, so you can make the best decision. That's just one more way Trivago helps you find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel Trivago.
Who was your first celebrity crush?
Adrian Brody.
Wouldn't have called that one, Stephanie. Lady Gaga stopped by the Ellen DeGeneres show to talk all things A Star Is Born, her new movie with Bradley Cooper that is out this weekend.
The reward for me is all in the work.